Hey, sweet insiders, Tina here. I just want to take a moment to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your incredible support. It means the world to me. And I'm so grateful to have you tuning in. We're so proud. We've got listeners in over 82 countries and 1,658 cities worldwide. What an amazing community that you've helped build. So if you're enjoying this podcast, it would mean so much to just take a moment to just leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. It really helps us to reach more people and helps to keep In the Suite growing strong. So I would appreciate that. And lastly, let's make sure that we're connected. Please, you can follow me and connect with me on LinkedIn and follow In the Suite Pod on Instagram. And thank you again so much for listening, subscribing, and being part of this incredible journey. You are truly the reason why I do what I do. Thank you so much.
On this week's episode of In the Suite with Tina Powell.
We are not afraid to challenge. And I will say it again. We are not afraid to challenge and to ask the tough questions. If I can use the power, the God-given power and media skills that I've been given to help provide hope and information to the people that need it most, then that's my legacy.
Hi, this is Tina Powell, host of In the Suite, where I sit down with top women leaders and some of the biggest names in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Together, we'll discover some of their best secrets and top strategies to grow a great business, build a strong brand, and lead teams in the 21st century. I hope you'll enjoy hearing their amazing personal stories of triumph, trepidation, and transformation in hopes of becoming better leaders ourselves. The time for you to lead is now, and you're in the suite.
I recently had the honor of joining Jack Sharry on his acclaimed podcast, WealthTech on Deck, a podcast about the future of wealth management technology brought to you by LifeYield. I thought you'd enjoy hearing it. Usually I'm the one asking the tough questions, but this time I take them head on. In our conversation, Jack and I explore how the wealth tech community has been such a cornerstone of my cancer journey, as well as my exciting path to partnering with Kelly Waldrick, CEO and founder of Intentionally, and becoming chief of community at Intentionally. We also discussed the surprising parallels between advocating for cancer awareness and driving intentional growth, and why partnerships are the ultimate key to scaling success in wealth management. I hope you enjoy it. This wasn't just a tech talk. It was about purpose, resilience, and the strength of a shared vision in the suite.
You're listening to WealthTech on Deck, a podcast about the future of wealth management technology, brought to you by LifeYield. Here's your host, Jack Sharry.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this edition of WealthTech on Deck. I'm so fortunate to find myself in this wonderful business of ours. I especially love the community of like-minded souls I have the privilege of speaking with each and every day. Each of us is trying to make a difference for consumers, advisors, and firms all over the wealth universe. Of course, this takes place in the public square. Public square, you ask? Let me give a shout out to social media, and in this case, LinkedIn. This is where my community, my friends in the business, my people come together each day to share what each of us is working on. Fittingly, one of those friends is someone who I have not yet met in person. And if I'm honest, I can't think of how we actually get to know each other than through following each other on LinkedIn. For years now, I have followed today's guest, Tina Powell. Why? She does good work. I admire her good work. I see it almost daily basis and makes me curious, makes me want to know more. So that's why we've invited her on today. So as a fellow citizen of the LinkedIn community, I recently reached out to Tina to introduce myself and learn more about her. I learned Tina is a trailblazer in the digital marketing industry. She is the chief of community at Intentionally, a very cool, high-growth digital marketing agency. We'll hear more about that, I'm sure. And now we're going to be having a very public conversation around her many contributions to our industry. And as you will soon learn, she is fighting an incredible fight as she seeks to make a difference for this community. Tina Powell, welcome to Wealth Tech on Deck. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Jack. I'm absolutely thrilled and honored to be here.
So Tina, let's start with you and who you are and what you do. Fill us in. Give us the story.
Yeah, well, first off, I've been following your work for years and this podcast. So really, it is a pleasure and an honor to be here. Jack, you had a great conversation last year with my business partner, Kelly Waltrick, who is the co-founder and CEO of Intentionally. Now, her and I have been working together here at Intentionally for 2 years. I just celebrated my 2-year anniversary this month, which is amazing. That's just small potatoes considering the amount of time that Kelly and I have known each other. She acquired my prior agency, C-Suite Social Media, and that was over 2 years ago. And today, Intentionally is where fintechs, advisors, asset managers, broker dealers, and the entire wealth management value chain goes for growth. And we represent the marketing portfolios of over 50 leading companies in the space. We build and execute their plans for growth. You might say, Jack, that we give our clients an entire SWAT team of marketers. We'll create go-to-market plans, email marketing campaigns, social, paid ad, lead gen, recruitment marketing, websites, and so much more. There's so many things under that umbrella.
Yep.
But, you'd ask a question about my role specifically as chief of community. And that is that, look, I get to have amazing conversations like today with the Jack Sharrys of the world. I'm all about like people and building and fostering and expanding Intentionally's community footprint with the entire wealth management industry. And, we do this by expanding our services, creating these growth programs, and really listening and tapping into the needs of our clientele, which is just, it's evolving, right? You had said it with the social media, right? Remember not too long ago, 10 years ago, we look at how social media was being used in registered investment advisory. So many people there's so much trepidation, right? So marketing is an innovative sport. It's not for the faint of heart. And if you're about growth, there's got to be some part of your modern marketing portfolio that has to have some R&D and innovative component.
Yep. One of the things I enjoy about this community, it has almost a family feel to it as I follow it each day. I'm always curious to see what I'm going to see today that I didn't know the day before. And interesting to see how people communicate. One of the things that we do, it's the name of our podcast is Wealth Tech on Deck, which would seem to indicate it's all about technology. Frankly, it's all about strategy. It's about communication. It's about bringing it all together. It's about building community. So I really enjoy that aspect of what we do in LinkedIn, on podcasts, in the way we all communicate. And what I thought might be interesting to add, we've never really had this kind of conversation that you and I are about to embark on, but you've been very forthcoming on all this. And I think that most of our listeners probably don't know, and I don't know if you do for sure, but you have a pretty significant backstory that makes the work you do all the more impressive. You're going to fill us in on that if you would?
Thanks, Jack, for that opportunity. I hope that it not only illuminates what I'm going through, but the fact that I really feel like what happened to me could potentially happen. And we did have seen it happen with some people in the industry, some friends and associates that you and I lost. I'll try to shorten it as much as possible because I could literally talk about this concept for hours. If you want to hear the long version of it, you can go to Diana Britton's Healthy Advisor podcast. About 2 years ago, on January 16, 2023, I walked into a place called the Princeton Longevity Center for one of those like full day executive style physicals. And for me, that was just really just being totally proactive. The idea came a couple of years back, but I never really pursued it because I felt at the time that it was in really good health. But most specifically in 2023 in January, my business partner, Kelly, was turning 40 and she turns around, Jack, and she goes, "Hey, you guys are think I'm crazy, but you know what I want for my 40th is I want one of those full body scans." So being that I kind of looked into it a couple of years back, I thought that was definitely maybe like a sign that I should get checked. And that's what I did actually. I went for a low dose CT scan, an entire workup of every type of test that you could imagine. You could think of it almost like CrossFit. You're going from like test to test, to machine. And basically that I walked in that morning at 8:30, Jack, and I left at 4:30. And I was told when I left at 4:30 that I had a 2.6 centimeter tumor on my right lung that I needed to get checked out as soon as possible. Naturally, you could imagine I was freaked. My family was freaked. My kids were freaked. My mom was freaked. But, look, I needed to know what I was dealing with. 4 weeks actually after that diagnosis, I was having part of my, the upper right lobe of my right lung removed because what they indeed found was non-small cell lung cancer. I don't smoke. I did smoke in high school and college. I just think that that's really important to kind of say. Biomarker testing and all kinds of analysis on my tumor showed that it was related to environmental exposure. I believe that, years and years ago, Jack, I worked in a basement that had mold for an extended period of time. I think like that's maybe part of how this manifested in my body, but that was nearly 2 years ago. Since then, actually, I've had a lot of different types of procedures. 3 weeks ago, I completed 33 rounds of radiation, 3 rounds of chemo. So, my condition is chronic and I continue to utilize an entire team of physicians, oncologists, radiation oncologists over at Penn Medicine, being treated at our Perlman Cancer Center for Advanced Medicine right here in Philly. But the thing is, I feel amazing, right? I feel great. The great thing is like, I'm back on the speaker circuit. I was just actually Penn Medicine invited me to speak at their 16th annual Focus on Lung Cancer. So, in addition to my work over at Intentionally, I do a lot of advocacy work for the lung cancer community. I have some content out on YouTube. Jack, almost every single couple times a month, I get calls, random calls and incoming emails from strangers who have just been recently diagnosed, or they have a loved one that was recently diagnosed and they're starving for information. And so those conversations have been really impactful and they've been really an important part of my work.
So let me dig in here if I may. I think part of why we become at least internet friends, but I think it goes beyond that, is you are a fierce advocate, fierce in the most positive way. I try to do that in my work, in my life. So I'm drawn to people like that and find it inspiring. So I'm nowhere near in the same camp as you are in terms of what you've been through and are going through. But I love what I see in terms of how you're taking this setback, this challenge, this punch in the gut, whatever. And I observe, and I'd love to hear more about it, I observe what you're taking it and using it for good, that you're, whether it's in your work or as an advocate for fellow cancer patients and families. Talk about that. How is this, my sense, you've always been energetic and positive and excited and an advocate and all that stuff, but my sense is it's probably a little bit more than it's ever been. So talk about that if you would.
Yeah, I mean, part of this just goes back to like who I am as a person. I think it's one of the reasons that I'm in marketing to begin with. I've always loved to champion the underdog. I've always loved to champion great companies. It started back in high school when I was captain of the varsity cheerleading squad. I love to champion our team and the players, and I cheerleaded both for like football and basketball. But right now, I think at Intentionally, it's about championing the work of our clients and the great work that they're doing and how they're making an impact in the wealth management industry.
Yep.
And on the cancer side, Jack, it's that how do I make an impact in the lives of other people who are also too suffering with the same type of chronic condition? And presenting a different narrative, presenting a different point of view.
Right.
And what I have learned a huge amount of information that I really feel that can be beneficial to the lives of my fellow survivors and to this community. I always said that I wanted to be in the position of service. I never wanted to curse the God, regardless of anyone's religious views, as you know, you're listening to that. I never wanted to curse the God that made me. There was a point in time, I'm 58 years old, by the way, if anybody's like kind of, curious of where, white female born in New York City, raised in the Northeast. But, so many people find themselves in this position. And when I was first diagnosed, Jack, I had a real hard time finding content in podcast format, in video format, in short video format, in written format, in visual format. And so I said, it was interesting because I put like the first series of posts out there, and then all of a sudden, I've got 400 subscribers, and that's not a huge amount at all on YouTube. They're just, following me and thanking me for my content, that it provided a glimmer of hope. It provided a clear direction. So I see myself as a servant. I'm so lucky and grateful to be alive. Maybe, Jack, if I were born at a different time, might not be sitting here right now. And we've seen a proliferation. And again, I don't mean to scare everybody. It's just a matter of just being informed, right? Like, as financial investors, we are informed as members of the wealth management industry. And your podcast here, Jack, does an incredible job of being informed. That's all I ask you to, is just be informed of your life. That diagnostic test, which was the test of all tests, that was so that I could be informed about what was happening in my body, utilizing the latest set of technology. So I see it myself as a vehicle of service, as a conduit of information. And if there's any way that I can bridge the hope that's in my heart to the people who need it most, utilizing the tenets of modern marketing media that, oh, by the way, I studied and I have a master's. I taught in the graduate program at NYU. I'm a partner in an agency that does this every single day. If I can use the power, the God-given power and media skills that I've been given to help provide hope and information to the people that need it most, then that's my legacy.
Let's take a moment to talk about growth. If you are in financial services and wondering how to move the needle on metrics that truly matter, pipeline, revenue, profitability, you need a partner who gets it. And intentionally, we're not just any marketing agency. We are the go-to growth consultancy for fintechs, RIAs, custodians, broker-dealers, and asset managers. Our team of cross-functional growth specialists works seamlessly across your firm to accelerate results. Ready to get intentional? Contact me at tina@growintentionally.com to schedule your strategy call and start transforming your growth engine today. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
Let's talk a little bit more about what you do intentionally and how you apply that, because I'm sure this was going on before that news that I'm sure rocked your world. I know it's rocked your world. How are you applying it? How does it play out? How do you see it manifesting where it's benefiting your clients in terms of your guidance, your mentorship, if you will, your advocacy? Talk a little bit about how that's playing out with clients.
Yeah, so it has inspired not only clients, it's inspired even intentionally our community internally here. We are almost 25 employees strong. And again, between the REAs that we're working with, the independent broker dealers, the asset management channel, people that I know who, you had talked about the LinkedIn connections, they have gone for that colonoscopy. They have gone for that physical.
Yep.
They have gone to their doctors. There are so many people. My own Mark, too, has all of a sudden taken his health to a higher level. So it's been inspiring to the people that I work with, because a lot of the people that I work with also too are connected to somebody that's going through this horrible predicament right now.
Yep.
And it provides a lens and an example. I hope that the power of my example of just like trying to meet challenges head on, again, it's taken the same page out of the Intentionally playbook. It is meeting challenges head on.
Yep.
And devising a strategy around those KPIs, what those outcomes are, what that impact is. So I'm lucky that I work for an incredible organization and that my business partner supports a culture of caring and wellness. That is a fundamental pillar here at Intentionally. I realize that that's a gift. Not everyone has the same type of flexibility in terms of modifying their schedule during treatment. I think one of the best examples of this, Jack, is 3 weeks ago today, the entire team of Intentionally, we literally had people flying out from all parts of the country to help me ring the bell to commemorate that last 33 rounds of radiation. They all showed up with their 33 shirts. It was 8:00 in the morning. I put it out on YouTube. I mean, it was crazy. I couldn't even believe that everybody's here, right?
Yep.
So it's like, it's all this kind of community piece. How are you here to support one another? And I'm just so lucky that I have the support system here at Intentionally Beyond. I want to give great credit to my family, my mother, Mark. My kids have been incredible. My brother, aunts, uncles, cousins. I feel that me handing and my church, me putting my hand up in terms of saying, hey, I need help and information, really helped to catalyze an entire series of incoming people into my life that wouldn't have been there if I were hush hush about this.
Sure.
And those people have been a gift. I definitely think that they have helped to, extend my lifespan. I think we saw if Gavin Spitzer, who passed away from cancer,
Sure.
Ryan Russell, who passed away from cancer. I mean, look at their bravery and look at their courage. They carried that same type of mantle, Jack. And why did they do that? To perpetuate awareness and to say, hey, wow, here we are, a group of people that are taking care of ourselves, exercising regularly. And if this could happen to us, potentially it might be able to happen to you. So, oh, by the way, not to scare you, but just be very aware, be hyper aware of everything that's going on in your life. Get those diagnostics early before you need them.
For our audience that may not be familiar, Gavin Spitzer and Ryan Russell are two people who are prominent on LinkedIn, kind of where all the cool kids meet, apparently. That's where I hang out a lot, as does Tina. And they had a very public battle with their health and ultimately lost. But a whole lot of people in the community sort of rose up and sort of fascinating. So, but for those that may not be familiar with those two folks, that's their backstory. So, Tina, let's talk a little bit about the work itself at Intentionally. Clearly, this is a motivating force for your company, for your colleagues, for what you do. And you position yourself as a growth agency, which I love, as opposed to a marketing agency. It's not so much the process as it's about the results. The result that everyone's after is growth, and growth is hard to come by. Our industry is only growing at a 2 to 3% clip. If you strip away mergers and acquisition, and you strip away the market. So it's not something we seem to know how to do. You guys seem to know how to do it a lot better than most. So why don't you talk a little bit about that? How do you work with your clients? What types of clients? What do you do with them and for them? So talk a little bit about how that plays out with your day-to-day work with them.
So Intentionally is the marketing agency that companies come to us for growth. Companies that aren't a great fit for Intentionally are still the ones kind of scratching their head and saying, you know what, I'm really happy where we're at and I don't really need to, pursue this thing. Maybe that's an advisor of a small lifestyle practice. Intentionally is dealing with much larger companies, fintechs, asset managers, large billion-dollar RIA firms, independent broker dealers that are seeking to really catalyze a movement, right? They're not just doing it growth for growth's sake, but they're doing it because they themselves, I just met with an RIA, and I know that he would be okay mentioning this, David Wood of Gateway Financial Partners in Glastonbury, Connecticut. They just put new offices. Now, David has been in the wealth management industry. He started his firm 30 years ago. I have got to tell you that firms like Gateway Financial Partners They relocated to new office. There's a high tech, high touch, high service orientation there. The office is a digital first, education first community of advisors. Those are the types of clients that are great for Intentionally. They know where they're going. They understand their impact to the community, and they have a clear vision of what they want. What they might need help with, Jack, and this goes back to your question, is how to get there. And that's where Intentionally comes in. We create the plans to get there for growth. We'll sit down with the top business leaders. Usually that's the CEO, that's the VP, that's the partners of particular firms, whether or not that be a fintech or a large RIA or even an independent broker dealer. And they had this great vision. Well, about 10 or 15 years ago, you could pretty much hire a VP of marketing to really help you execute that. But what's happened in modern marketing is that marketing has become nuanced. I think this podcast is a perfect example. Jack, you've got a great company. At the same time, you need those outsourcing capabilities to really have specialists, deep specialists. Again, this is akin to healthcare, deep specialists on your team who know what to do and who've already been doing it for firms like you. That's where Intentionally comes in. So part of it might be a strategy for an activation. There might be a fintech platform that has recently announced an entire fleet of features that they're ready to roll out. That type of activation, that's a great use case for Intentionally. There might be a merger or an acquisition. Today, we actually have a webinar on M&A communications from our Joe Stoiter here, who is head and chief of communications here at Intentionally. So we might see firms that are now, rather than just growing strictly organic, who are going inorganic. Intentionally heads up a lot of recruitment marketing for those advisors to help firms grow and attract the right type advisor who would fit into that. That we know, Jack, and you alluded to it before, that's been a huge industry trend. Another example is a large independent broker dealer that already has advisors who come under their umbrella, but perhaps they need additional support to help those advisors grow their B2C channels, where Intentionally will, again, provide the messaging, the platform. Kelly Waltrick and Melissa Thomas here, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our advisor brand builder, which is a fintech platform that helps advisors relaunch and redo all of their communications in a very short time at a fraction of the cost to help attract their ideal client profile. We've had a tremendous success for that. That allows us to serve the small, independent, state registered advisor, even SEC registered advisor who's like, look, my practice is different than it was 5 years ago. Estate planning and tax planning are more of my practice. I need help to let our clients know that that's what we offer. We need to redo our website. We need email communications. We need an email newsletter. So Intentionally provides the guiding force and the core competencies so that advisors can execute that in a risk-free environment. We're already doing it for over 50 clients. Why not choose a marketing agency that's already doing it, that knows how to do it with the best team out there?
So one of the things I've noticed of late, and you mentioned one of those, you have an Omaha connection. You've got Joe Stoiter, you've got Rainey Lambert.
Kyle Hyatt.
You have Kyle Hyatt, who was at Orion, as was Rainey Lambert. Joe was at Carson.
Yeah, Joe was at Carson for over 15 years.
Yeah, so talk about what roles do they play with the team? I'm fascinated by bringing in real talent from the typical marketing agency wouldn't have people like that as part of the team. So talk a little bit about that coming together.
Sure. So again, I have to give credit to Kelly who a co-founder, CEO of Intentionally. You know, Jack, at the end of the day, it really goes back to those relationships. Kelly spent the last 10 years of her career over at eMoney and over at Orion during their fastest growth trajectory, right? One of the things we notice is this, and it kind of goes back to your question about like Randy and Kyle. Kyle on the sales side, Randy on the consulting side, Jack on the communication side, each of these esteemed individuals who I am so honored to work with on a daily basis has had their own set of experiences. But one thing we know is this, whether or not that you're a registered investment advisor, again, Joe comes from that world, or you're a fintech platform, the world that Randy and Kyle and even Kelly, you know, I come from the RIA industry world too. Those two worlds are uniquely tied to each other.
Right.
You have to have a true understanding of both of those ecosystems and the entire wealth management value chain. Randy Lambert is an amazing technologist. He really, truly understands the needs of both the platform and the end client because he did it for 30 years.
Sure.
All of these, a lot of what we're seeing are new entrants into the fintech ecosystem and the world. The hard part is that they come in with a high core competency of technology and building platforms, but maybe they don't know so much about the registered investment advisory world. They don't understand the constraints and the compliance frameworks of the wealth management space. They maybe even, Jack, don't understand what does it take, the due diligence, the integration aspects of getting your fintech platform on even a custodial affinity services network, right? These are where you have, it's not one person here and intentionally that holds the mantle of all things, but it's being able to be a sounding board for our clients who have amazing ideas, grand visions, and who want to make an impact on the world. They need an internal team of people to bounce ideas off. And that is, I think, one of Intentionally's best use cases of what we do so well in the industry. We are not afraid to challenge. And I will say it again. We are not afraid to challenge and to ask the tough questions. We already know what those questions should be. And it's coming from a place of service to the fintech platforms and the fintech leaders that we serve. And lots of times, Jack, 9 times out of 10, Intentionally will reveal something that the tech founder never thought about.
Yep.
And so we're here to fast track that success.
Love it. So, Tina, I had high expectations, I will tell you, but you've exceeded them. Thank you for sharing about your personal journey, your personal challenges, and how you're dealing with those. It's inspiring. Thanks for sharing about Intentionally. I love what you guys are doing. It's super smart and needed, and obviously you're crushing it out there. So congratulations on continued success. So as we look to wrap up, any key takeaways you'd like to leave with our audience as we look to press on to the rest of our day?
Yeah, well, this is coming at, we're in November. We just turned over a new election year, which is great. I think the country has a firm stance of where interest rates are going and some of the questions that we all had. I would say that in 2025, if growth is your North Star, then don't be afraid to challenge it. Really think about who your strategic growth partners are and whether or not that you're dealing with a health crisis, a business crisis, a leadership crisis, or something in your own business, you need a great partner. One of the things that I'm really proud of the work that I'm doing not over here and in the lung cancer community is how to continue to make an impact. I'm in 3 different research studies right now. And I'm really proud. Part of my job as a lab rat. But that's because at the other end of that, Jack, is some leader that is scratching their head and challenging, not afraid to challenge the status quo.
Uh-huh.
So going into 2025, Don't continue to do the same thing that you're doing because it will just get you results. Really align yourself in all areas of your life, health, physical, spiritual, business. Align yourself with people who have really truly an understanding of you and where you want to go to, whether or not that's us at Intentionally or me personally on the lung cancer side. I just feel really honored and grateful to be alive, to be able to do the work that I love.
Great. Good. Tina, this has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you. Thank you for sharing it in so many interesting and unique ways. So thank you for all that. As we do with each of our podcasts, we have one of the last questions, always my favorite. What do you do outside of work? Actually, I think I may know the answer to this, but what do you do outside of work that you are excited or passionate about that people might find interesting or surprising?
So one of my favorite things to do is I love live music. And a week from today, I've got a trip to Nashville to see Nate Bergansky at the Grand Ole Opry to do some comedy, followed by a country line dancing experience. So every single time I go to Nashville, it's the same thing. Mark and I take this random country line dancing experience with a group of people we don't even know. There's like 40 of us at this, honky tonk in Nashville.
That's great.
Music, dancing, theater. I was just at Hamilton right here in Philly. That's a part that really gives my life a lot of vibrancy. Combine that with like traveling and getting to see some amazing places. So,
that's great.
Hopefully I get to run into some of our listeners at that honky tonk next week in Nashville.
That's great. So Tina, thanks so much. I really have enjoyed our podcast. For our listeners, if you've enjoyed what we're talking about here at WealthTech on Deck, please rate, review, subscribe, and share what we're doing. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. You should also check us out at our dedicated website, wealthtechondeck.com. All of our episodes are there, along with blogs and curated content with many folks from around the industry. Tina, thanks again. This has been a real honor and pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jack. I enjoyed our conversation as well. You keep up the good work. I'm a super fan.
Very well. Right back at you. So thanks so much. We're going to keep talking. So thanks so much.
You're listening to In the Suite, the podcast that brings you inspiring stories of women leading the way in financial services and wealth management, along with the men who champion and empower them. Our producers are Tina Powell and Kevin Hirshorn. Our editor-at-large is Kevin Hirshorn. Our content writer is Tina Powell. This podcast is sponsored by Intentionally, a growth design consultancy working with fintech and finserve companies to turbocharge their marketing efforts. If you want more information, please email me at tina@growintentionally.com. And thank you so much for listening. We've got listeners in over 82 countries, 1,658 cities worldwide. Please consider giving us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. It would mean the world and help us to get found by more people. Please, I would also love for us to connect on LinkedIn and have you follow In the Suite Pod on Instagram. Thank you again for listening and subscribing.